Morning.
Good morning.
I noticed the link in the email appears to have space in it when I click
Oh,
on
well,
it.
yeah, sometimes it does that if I put it in there, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that way.
Huh.
Um, yeah. Hello.
Hello. I forgot to do a reminder. Jesse, could you go in the Slack and remind people that we're meeting? Or
Yes,
oh, thank you.
I was about to do that.
Yeah, in the general channel. Thank you. Hello, Ankit. Sorry about the time mix-up.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So good. Well, I don't know. Maybe a few more people show up here. I wanted to get into some sort of the Slack review. I actually wanted to get into the brain organoid stuff, but I wanted to see if Morgan was going to be here today. And anyways, welcome to the meeting. Hopefully everyone's having a good. This is the holiday weekend in the U.S., so I don't know. Maybe people are busy. I know that we have people come in a little bit later, so. So I'm gonna go through the Slack, and I mean, I guess Jesse or Ankit, do you have any updates you'd like to share before we get started?
Um, Not really anything major myself right now. It's mostly there's been a lot of uh, tangential stuff. Like I don't know if who's the new person, Arthur.
Yeah, Arthur.
Um, I may try to meet with Arthur
Okay, yeah, that would be
at some
great.
point. And I know he said he might present something today, but I don't know if they're there. So a lot of talking with Avery and Jenny, and a lot of really interesting things are going on, but not. I don't really have any major. I don't have a specific update I can say for them. Mostly for me, it's just it's the holiday week,
Yeah,
but it's it's been kind of just nice to have some downtime, and then pretty much my life is going to be finalizing anything for my applications this weekend and until the first and beyond. So I'm probably not going to have a lot to say the next few weeks. But yeah, if I think of something else, I'll let you know. But I think it's mostly going to be that for me. I'm going to be checking up on everybody else and mentioning it. I don't think Jenny or Avery is going to stop by today. And I'm not. I'll see if Erin wants to also.
okay.
But that's it. I'll say more if I get back from them.
Oh yeah, no problem. So yeah, and Arthur or the Ankit said that he has exams coming up until Christmas. So yeah, good luck with that, Ankit. I know that you mentioned that before. And in terms of the
Yeah.
paper that we're working on, I'll try to get into that like while you're taking your exams, and I'll try to work on that.
So, have you thought something like about it? Like, could you share like any progress or anything that you like thought about?
Well, I haven't gotten into it yet. I've been working on another paper, so I'll get into it like maybe in the next week or so. I've been thinking about it
Yeah.
actually. So um, uh,
So, have you listed a few points or ideas
okay,
that you maybe want to share?
yeah,
Because I have like a few ideas I could share right now, and maybe if you have some things in mind, maybe you could share right now as well.
yeah. Do you have a screen share, or do you have, or is it
Uh,
just on paper listed?
Wait, I could. Well, yes, I could screen share.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see, right?
Yeah, I can see it.
So I think I was watching which video? Yeah, I was watching this particular video, and I kind of realized that in this video, what they are doing is this is I think Jesse shared this video,
Yeah.
and this is about like evolution and mutation and stuff. So in this video, what I realized what they were doing is basically they were using neurons and they were using mutations. And like one interesting thing that I noticed in this was like this part. So there is so basically they are modeling different kinds of neurons, and like there's a particular neuron called the kill neuron. What it does is that it basically if the connections are strong to kill neuron, what it will do is like the particles which are moving, it will have some kind of heuristic that suppose let's say like you have a particle in front of you and you're moving towards it. So whatever like comes in the way of that particle, it will get killed off. So the green graph indicates those that are living, and yellow one kind of indicates which are like murders, and the purple is showing the diversity. So this shows the similar kind of like a bistability. Like this part is showing where like both like there are murders, and this is the second stability point.
Okay.
And this I thought was like really similar to the paper that we added in a switching theory. This is the third slide, which was based on epigenetic switching.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that was something I found was really relatable. And another idea that I have probably for the future is that in this CSU's neurons. So right now, I haven't really tried our algorithm on a neuron. So that is something that we could experiment and see how it works on like a neural network, suppose
Yeah.
using this algorithm for optimization. And what's this? Okay, whatever. Uh, and beside that, I kind of found this NN discrete TF. So the idea that was I had was like inverse genetic algorithm thing. Like you can initialize the initial population. So your initial wait, let me make it a little bit more. Let me make it. So like yeah. So like your initial population is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. It's just like a weight matrix, right? So the idea that I had was this P or the weight matrix. This could be anything. So I was looking at like few of the weight initialization techniques, and like I came across this paper, and in this paper, where's the one second. Hmm, where's the paper? Give me a second. Oh, I didn't know about this. This is a better one. Yeah, so basically, yeah, there's this paper, and yeah, so in this paper, what they're saying is they are training a discrete value neural network with sigmoid activations, and they're kind of, since it's a discrete neural network, I guess they're approximating a lot of things. So since like this is a discrete neural network, the weight initialization is also going to be like discrete. So over here they have used like four types of weight initialization. The first one is called the ternary weight, which is like -101. Then uh, there is another one. It's somewhere down. Yeah, it's over here.
Okay.
So the ternary is basically -101. That's D3. Then D4 is this one, and D5 is this. But the thing is that based on our understanding, we can kind of use some kind of like a weight initialization technique. So that's something we can like think of. And like the last thing that I kind of think we should try is this. Uh, Give me a second. Trying to find the repository. Yeah, so this is something like one of my friends have kind of has worked on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called gradient evolution. And in this, what he does is basically like he uses evolutionary search along with the gradients. So it's like ES algorithm, if I'm not wrong. I think I've not studied a lot about that, but I think there's something called ES plus lambda, ES mu plus lambda algorithm, evolutionary search algorithms. So what he's using, he's basically he found this in this chapter, and he implemented an evolutionary gradient search algorithm. And in this, basically, they are combining ES with approximate gradients. Yeah, which is the Hessian form. Yeah. So he tested it out on like these. Oh wait, I'll also share the links. I'll
Okay.
share it. So in this, what he did was like you have this OpenAI. What do you call it? What do you call this? Forgot. Gym, OpenAI gym. So he tested this on like this bipedal walker and lunar lander, and according to him, like the results that he got were kind of like better than the. He has given all the proofs. If you can see what he's doing, yeah. So he this is the ES and this is the ES with the gradient. So according to that, you can see how well it converges faster. And he also does it on like image reconstruction. Maybe that's we could try this out first, like after some time.
Yeah.
And if you can see inside, like and where was it? Just give me a second. Yeah, so you can see like in this one, he is building a net. So this is something I think we'll have to build upon what we already have. Like he's adding a linear layer. You can see he's adding one linear layer, the second one, now output layer, and we have to kind of like then he's using mutations and stuff. So we can kind of model this into like this would somewhat be used in like a reinforcement learning setting to see like how good or bad like our algorithm is. So we could kind of benchmark it against this also and see how our algorithm performs. So yeah, this is what I had in mind. So I'm pasting the links. Where should I paste
Okay.
it?
Yeah. Please post the links, and then also in the Slack if you can. So that's good. So yeah, I like this. I like a lot of the stuff you've shown, especially the
I'm
OpenAI.
posting it in the chat. Is it okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's a good place. I like the OpenAI gym as a benchmark, and then I like this last approach too. This is a nice approach. I think. Yeah, when we have like this mixture of like the evolutionary algorithm and then weights, and kind of working through how to represent those two things in tandem, I think that would be powerful. And then we could use the switching aspect as sort of like on top of that to sort of optimize. So you have like this representation of something, and then you're evolving it, and then you're also implementing the switching to show the improvements. So I think this would be a really good thing to work towards and kind of put together
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
So, like, what were the ideas that you had regarding this?
Oh, I guess. Well, I mean, I don't really. I mean, what you've shown, I'm kind of taking notes on it. I'll think about it more. In terms
Yeah,
of
sure.
writing it up, yeah, I mean, at this point, I think, we can write up what we have. And, if we want to target something like Gecko, we might need more results. But we also, I'll work on the paper in terms of putting it in proper order and doing some background literature search and things like that. And then, we can also write maybe part of another paper where we can put in some of this stuff, maybe put in some different results. So, I mean,
So
we
basically,
can.
we need more applications, right?
I think, yeah, if we want to target Gecko, we need to have like something. Yeah, we need to develop it a little bit more because they'll want to see like some really interesting results. I mean, if you can think of it like if you can generate a couple of plots where you can walk through, like you have this basic model where you're reversing the algorithm, then you get to another point where you're actually trying it in maybe like OpenAI Gym, and you're able to show on a benchmark what it can do. And then maybe or maybe a second step is where you start working from like the genetic algorithm maybe to some neural network weights and showing how you can those can be evolved. And then the third step would be like a benchmark like OpenAI Gym. So it's like the paper would be like it would be a sequential tour through this idea. So I have this idea and I implemented it like this to start off with. Then we kind of refined it a bit, added some complexity, and then we benchmarked it on this benchmark to show the performance. You'll have performance graphs, but you also have the environment where you tested it, and then we can write about how this relates to some of the literature, how this contributes to the field. So I think that would be good.
So someone exit? Yeah, that was just.
Yeah.
So like currently, so like what are we like aiming at in terms of Gecko?
Well, I think for like Gecko, if you just have like a proof of concept, I think that would work. You don't need to have anything really fancy. You just need to maybe even make like a, just kind of like maybe run something in the, just have something that's executable or, have code for something. And I think that's good for Gecko. I mean, we'll see how they always do the reviews, and you'll get reviewers who maybe don't like that approach, but most will. And so
I think we need. So like we aiming for like what paper workshop? What are we aiming for?
yeah, I think a full paper for Gecko.
Paper.
Yeah.
So I think for a paper, like I think I was noticing like most of the papers that they are really full with math. So we need something mm, like an app to prove mathematics.
Need what?
I was saying that looking at the paper, like I shared one of the paper, right? Like the which was nominated for the best paper. So like all of them are like really math heavy, with proofs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, we can. Yeah, we can do that. We can refine it and put in some formalisms as well. I mean, it's like that's the background part. People just kind of walk through what's involved in it. But there are also more theoretical papers and more applied papers. So it's we'll have to look through some of the papers, make sure that we have it in the way they kind of expect it. But
Yeah, okay.
I haven't.
You can like pick me up like when you're working on it. Like even if I feel even if I'm busy, like I could cooperate like whenever you're working on it. Like, if you feel that you need to add something to it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I haven't interacted with Gecko in a while, so I don't know what their current sort of the standards are. So yeah, we'll have to look through the papers, but I will start working on it soon, and then if I have questions, I'll contact you. But I'll try not to be too. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I sent you like a few papers, so maybe that could be like a good estimation.
Right.
Because like I'd asked like Gecko directly on Twitter, like like I'm submitting for the first time, etc., etc. Like, what do you suggest to like write in the paper? So like they kind of sent me that paper on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of sent it back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've said enough now.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that sounds good, and we'll keep on top of that, and I'll get back with you as you um, as you're going through your exams and everything, and we'll see how that goes. So, okay, well, thank you. So that was Ankit. I had let's see, there was something in the chat here. So we had a couple things in the chat here. We had the links that Ankit shared with some of the things that he was looking at in his slides that he showed. Jesse says Erin and potentially myself may be going through a data science boot camp or training of sorts. So that's good, Jesse. I know you were going to do the summer of data, but it didn't. It wasn't as intense. Yeah.
Exactly. And there were like a lot of things on sale for Black Friday and stuff. And I obviously won't be doing that in the immediate future, but it'd be really good. I know. You kind of asked about meeting with Jenny and Avery to talk about NeuroMatch stuff, and that's on the docket. I think Jenny is currently actually at Oxford,
Okay.
visiting some people there, and she's also submitting for her plot twisters work. She is. Let me see if I have this up here. She is. There's a major deadline for her, which has to do with. Yeah, here we go. Where did it go? There's a major deadline for her that has to do with. How do you explain it? Where is it here? I can't find a good description of it.
Okay.
But basically, she's working with something related to the United Nations, and working on her plot twister stuff, and submitting some things to it. And there's a major deadline for that that's happening basically now. So she's very, very busy with that. So after that happens, and I'll see if I don't think she's gonna be here today. I think she's busy with stuff.
Right.
But there's a lot going on there, and we have to meet about that at some point. Hopefully in the next few days, but I'm not really sure. And as far as the Erin and data stuff goes, I would like to have a meeting about kind of the general timeline and scope of next year. I have been doing I didn't do it this week so much, but I've been going through some stuff on GitHub and kind of setting up some project management stuff again with all that stuff. So there's things in the works for all of that, but kind of just mapping out, including, I know we talked about Google Summer of Code, but I'm not sure quite how the timelines have shifted on that. So that's kind of a main summer event. There's like probably be NeuroMatch again, or at least NeuroMatch Academy. But outside of that, like in the first few months of the year. Also, I know Ankit's been mentioning hackathons and other events that we could maybe just do stuff at specifically. So kind of, I think there could be. I'm not really ready to do it this week, but I think it'd be nice to start having some conversations about that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Erin may be doing some more training in the data science arena, and hopefully we can incorporate that into her maybe talking about it if she's doing something, or I'm not sure what I'll be doing, but something along those lines probably will happen.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, it would. Actually, I can show you this now. I posted a update on our meetings. So what I did was, and I've done this a couple times, where I take the meeting recordings and I pick out like different conversations that we've had and highlight it. So let me see if I can share my screen here. So this is on our Medium our lab medium that we have. And this is the most recent post. This was from, like, I think Monday night when I posted this. So this is recent Saturday morning NeuroSim conversations. So recent meaning like from like the beginning of August. So it's not necessarily recent, but it kind of goes through a lot of things that I've not had time to put together. So, there's some conversations that are kind of lost to most of us because either we weren't at the meetings or just kind of like never got brought up in the Slack. So we have this conversation on category theory and symbolic systems. We also talked a little bit about compositional game theory and developmental processes. Category theory is applied to AI. So there's this whole set of conversations on that topic. We also have a shared notes document on the BICA AI conference. So Jesse and I attended that, and it was pretty good. But, a lot of that, again, gets lost to history. But we have the shared notes document, so that's something you can check out. Krishna and Angela also presented on things in the fall. And then we talked about virtual reality, the history and trajectory of VR. Then we had this period of time where we started talking about switching, and Ankit presented his work. And so now, this is kind of an example of how we can bring people together in these meetings and produce something. And so that's good. I think that's something I'll show people how those things come together. Then my discussion on Gödel, Escher, Bach, which I pointed out here. Some other things on meta-learning and spatial representations. We had our Facebook discussions about the metaverse and some of the stuff on human eggs from induced pluripotent cells. So sometimes people leave the meeting early or come in late, and so this is also an opportunity for them to bookmark this stuff. And then finally, this discussion on zeroth order regulation. And then, here we go. Jesse Perrin has been giving a series of short presentations on career development for emerging scholars. So actually I put these together in a list. I don't know if I've missed any, but these are the things that, as going back through the meetings I saw that Jesse had put together. And these were just little discussions in the different weeks. So we have how many do we have? I think we have 7 little discussions. And they're not really hyper organized or hyper polished. But, I think they're if someone goes back, they can look at it for about 10 minutes and they can get a sense of what you're trying to impart. So, so check that out. Let me get a link to that in the chat.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. It's good to do these posts now and then. Ideally, this would be actually more a regular thing, and we haven't, we would have much more updates or recaps of meetings. So it's always available. We have to even get back to some people who asked about looking to do this specifically.
Yeah.
But this is a very timely and important thing. And thank you for doing specifically the professional development stuff. That will lead into some other stuff that's going to be happening next year too. So it's good.
Yeah, no problem. I thought we should annotate that a bit. And I think, it's we can follow up on some of these conversations. I've liked some of the things that we've talked about. I think they're things that people wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else. And so we want to keep, maybe if you could just, when you come up with a topic, and this, this doesn't have to be Jesse, it could be anyone, just give a short, doesn't have to be much, just maybe a couple slides or just some establishing thing where you discuss a topic and then we can start discussing it a little bit more in depth. So that's good. I'm going to go into the Slack now, and we'll start with brain organoids because I know that we missed that last week actually. So yeah, Morgan, you're muted if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, it is dropped in both, hopefully some good links, but also notes on the talks that I've been catching, mostly tissue engineering. But just tissue engineering and biomaterials. And then the citric acid talks was also really fascinating as it relates to both of those things in terms of biomaterials and then how you use biomaterials as potentially as scaffolding and things like that to grow bone or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, really interesting talks. And there's a talk coming up at the Laboratory of Molecular Biology. I think it's November 30th. So you can catch that. That's the lab where is it Madeline Lancaster?
Could be.
Yeah. So you can catch that talk, and then if you see further down here, so Transmedtech is another great series of talks in addition to tissue talks, which is a seminar series, Columbia seminar series. This looked really interesting in that University of Montreal is doing a course on organ-on-chip technology. So I was going to see if they were doing anything that they were doing potentially remote on that. But I'd really like to know, what they do cover, what text, things like that. Obviously, it's not brain specific, but as Michael Schuller's talk showed, there's the organ-on-chip technology is a great way to kind of take organoid work and do it more experimentally, or keep it 2D, but you can have more control over it and have a lot more both sensors and potentially things to control the environment.
Yeah.
I think that was it. And then just some great papers. I'll just say that for the first one there, it's really there's a whole set of papers that have been coming out of the Blue Brain project, which is it's based in Lausanne, and is basically the original human brain project, European human brain project, was headquartered in Lausanne. So they've been coming out with these papers that are super impressive kind of work that you really can't no lab can kind of recreate this on its own, right? These are like the Allen Institute, these are kind of projects that are pretty unique, but incredibly important as a resource. And I don't know what's going on there, but they're in a major hiring phase too.
Oh wow.
So it's pretty interesting. I was checking out they've got a project manager position and a software trainer position, which I thought was even more interesting.
Yeah, they're trying to.
Well, it certainly relates to when Human Brain Project was centered there. It had as a part of its mission outreach, right?
Oh, right.
And so this is one of the reasons why neurorobotics.net is so cool.
Yeah.
Right? Is that it is a resource from the original Human Brain Project, right? And neuromorphic computing, I forget what their their URL was. But you can Google it now with Human Brain Project, and brain scales and the other neuromorphic computing platform are both available online. And I brought those up to Demetrius when the student who wrote the article on spiking neural networks.
Yeah.
These are all, the Human Brain Project had six pillars or 6 platforms, and each of those had a bit of an outreach portion. So yeah, it's a great resource for groups, whether you're in Europe or not, to check out. And it was nice talking. Demetrius is super interesting. Am I remembering his name right? Excuse me. Let me just check spiking neural network. Demetrius. Unfortunately, he actually went back, and he's trying to get his military service out of the way.
Okay.
Right? So in Greece, it's a requirement. My college roommate was Greek, and I forget when he did his. I think he did it like in between in his grad school years or something. Anyway, you gotta fit it in at some point.
Yeah.
But he's trying to get it out of the way, and is certainly interested in like both having access to hardware, neuromorphic chips, as well as some of the other things that they were doing, specifically making this into a machine learning pipeline. But so hopefully I'll learn more about Organon chip technology and where it's at. And I don't know if I had, since we didn't talk about organoids last week, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I was talking with a biomaker space in Montreal about, which is cool, right? So they came to NeuroTechX to talk about like what they were starting to do, and I think this is hosted out of Concordia, which is actually where NeuroTechX started as a joint. There's two co-founders, one at Concordia and one at University of Montreal. And for those who don't know, Montreal's a city kind of split into French-speaking and English-speaking, and so these would be representatives of both. But Concordia has a kind of incubator site called District 3, or just in a portion of the university. So it was nice because I've visited District 3 before, and it sounds great. They are willing to host kind of long-term projects that would be of interest, and they were already talking about growing neurons, not organoids. But and I will post the paper because it was. I've been meaning to follow up on this particular paper that he sent that talked a little bit about the kind of work that they were thinking about doing. And I think it was about incorporating fibroblasts. Let me pull the paper. But exciting in the sense that when I said, hey, well, would you be willing to, they were already talking about bioreactors and maintaining bioreactors long term. So I had said, yeah, would you be interested in being a resource for cerebral organoids? And it said something about like, well, I don't know if we can send them in the mail or something like that. And I was like, no. And then I showed Katerina's paper in terms of the kind of remote control platform that they'd developed. I mean, it wasn't so much that you had to be in a different continent or anything. I think Katerina's group just made this so that they could control their bioreactors from home. It's again, it seems from Alison Mutri from UCSD has come and talked at the Exploratorium. And I don't know if people are familiar with the Exploratorium, but it's a great science museum downtown San Francisco that was started by Oppenheimer's brother when he got blacklisted. He's talked about the kind of the high touch bioreactors that they have, and that it's a lot of grad students coming in and doing daily work. And what they've been trying to do in terms of automatizing that with their a particular box that was sent up onto the International Space Station, right? So so part of their development work was just how do we do this in space, right? And like we can't come in and change media and things like that the same way that when we're on the International Space Station. Part of that was also just making some intellectual property that is now part of their spin-off. So the spin-off that Allison has from UCSD is kind of focused on the bioreactors. It's not, and I've talked a little bit about this with Bradly in terms of, how do you start a cerebral organoid program? Do you go a traditional academic route in terms of like talking about the research possibilities of this and then try and get research money? Or do you try and create a startup and use a business case for cerebral organoids, which certainly exist in terms of some of the companies that are in the Bay Area have pursued this, personalized medicine approach, essentially growing tumors that are representative of the person, for instance. And anyway, he's gone the route of making the bioreactor itself. So making the automatized equipment for growing organoids long term. So it's like, it's essentially an equipment manufacturer in the kind of like Illumina gene sequencer equipment. These are sophisticated pieces of hardware that are essential for researchers, but that aren't the research itself, right? And maybe there are good cases for this because you could also see this as being a potential buyout prospect later by one of the companies that actually do make the stem cells and organoids themselves, like Stem Cell, which is an actual company. So yeah, it should be really lots to be following up on, and I'll post a link for this other paper. And if anybody's interested, please get in touch with me because there's so much going on in tissue engineering. And and then the last paper focuses on. Sorry, I can't see it right now, but the last paper focuses on 3D imaging of the head. Right, so they're it's talking about, capturing the microvasculature, but there's actually a lot in there about growing the vasculature. So again, one of the biggest issues with cerebral organoids is getting full, kind of full development or full age growth. And one of the limitations is that, you are in the early days, you were just starting with neurons, right? And you're starting with a pluripotent stem cell. And what you're lacking is the associated tissues that grow with the brain, right, to make the whole head. And this is a nice paper in demonstrating both the techniques to capture all of this, as well as some additional work in scaffolding and vascular growth and all sorts of things. And they're doing this incredible characterization of everything too, right? So you're seeing here 4 weeks. The early organoids, I think, were limited to something like 12-week growth because they didn't have associated vasculature. And these have been a lot of great development work has gone on to extend that at this point, but it becomes, as you can see, it becomes really complicated, which should be no surprise at all. But
yeah, I like these last two papers that you posted in the Slack. So this of course is the one you just talked about, the vascularization, and then this one, the standardized brain molecular atlas, which I thought was really good. From I like these kind of papers where they kind of lay out like an atlas, or so it's like this thing where you have some resource that people build, but it's kind of like a review because they go through a lot of what's been done. And so this was
and what we're going for ideally, right, is that this is all entered into something like a resource like biomodels, right? And this is extending out the kind of work that's been going on from just getting from paper to paper, right? Just isolated paper from isolated paper. And what we're looking for is the full set of both metabolites and pathways that molecular and metabolic pathways that are going on in the brain. And this is so much data, so much information, right? But that this can all be entered in using various ontologies and other informatics tools that we can write programs that understand these things. So this is what system biology markup language is for. Is just there are languages for describing this, and for languages that you can then use differential equations to determine what given initial concentrations what you should get, and start making predictions of incredibly complex sets of chemical equations.
Yeah.
And this is Blue Brain's, this is the kind of scope and scale that they really do, want to achieve, right? So even though their initial simulations were like 1 millimeter of cortex, they were seeing, this incredible detail inside that and complexity, but trying to capture all aspects of it.
Yeah, this is great. This is an example, this figure. So you have your different source materials. So you have a species like a mouse or a rat, you have brain regions. So you have a brain that you can find regions and simulate those, or get data from them, analyze them. You have different cell types, so there are very many different types of neurons, and then there are organelles, which are inside the cell, like mitochondria, the endoplasmic reticulum, the nucleus, the endosome, and so forth. And then we can model those things using simulation or network analysis. We can use disease studies, which are where you look at disease states versus non-disease states, and then all that can be guidance for experiments. Although, you can do things within this in silico environment that, we talk about OpenWorm, and one of the things OpenWorm is here is it's just a small portion of this pipeline. So OpenWorm, well, it's not a small portion of this pipeline, but it's sort of organized like you see in A, except that, you're trying to build the species by building up these different cell types, brain regions, and organelles. And C. elegans, you don't have brain regions, but you have like circuits. So you're building up from like the organelles or the ion channels or whatever to a cell type, which is basically a neuron or a somatic cell of some type, to a circuit or a region or a tissue, and then up to the species or the whole organism. And so then you can do these different types of analysis once you have data on those things. And then you can actually build models of the data. So this is, if you're interested in data science, this is the kind of thing you can build from big data. You can label, the data that you have. You not only have a bunch of numbers, but you have labels. And you can look at different experiments and say, how did those experiments turn out? That they give us information about size of things, the weight of things, the shape of things, and then what does the cell do? What's its function? So there are different annotations that people can build, where they do experiments with cells and they say that this cell or this gene does a certain thing in the biology. It's either maybe like it's involved in maintenance or it's involved in some sort of function, and all those things can be revised from latter data. But to get these kind of big models of sort of ontologies, but also kind of like model labels for, say, like machine learning, you have to go through this pipeline where you look at data. People collect data, they do experiments, or they do characterization. They get these huge data sets, and then you can get these labels through just kind of like observing the cells or the genes or whatever, or doing experiments and saying what these things do in the experiments. And then you can get information like weights, or you can get information like basic directionality. So like one neuron is connected to another neuron in a way that's either information is going from one neuron to another. We can get all these data and put them into a framework, which is where you get this markup language, and then we can use this for other types of applications. So that's all very good. I like these papers.
Yeah. It's really interesting learning about the neuroinformatics. Sorry, I only posted the title there. I'm just getting the getting the actual. I don't know why I'm having trouble finding that paper. It's interesting to learn about the informatics aspect of that, like what are ontologies, and how where, when you do an experiment, where should your data end up, and there's a lot of work in life sciences now focused around these questions, and one of the great resources that I found is in tracking the work of the Alan Turing Institute, in particular the Turing Way, which is this data science manual that we've posted here before. There, a lot of the people who are working on that data science manual are a part of Open LifeSci, and they, everything from putting together computational pipelines to ontologies and markup languages and this kind of informatics infrastructure, simulation infrastructure, all of it. As there's an incredible amount of work going, a lot more work going on in life sciences in general than in say brain science, right? And it's great to track that in a somewhat curated way, and it's been nice to track the people who are involved in that. The Turing Way project.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I agree. I'm going to move on now to some of the other channels. I know we've had a good, robust discussion on this, but I want to highlight some other things that have been going on the past week. In Bioevolution, we had I posted something on this. This was, I think, a paper. Did neuropeptides evolve before neurons? We have identified the first neuropeptide precursors in sponges and choanoflagellates, and they seem to be homologous to bilaterian precursors. So this is some work that's been done on, like, Leonid Moreau's, I think, is also another name in this area, where they've looked at, like, the deep sort of evolutionary history of synapses and neurons, and like they've looked at neuropeptides and where their origins are. And it turns out that they don't necessarily originate with mammalian neurons, or even with animal neurons as they exist in their diversity. Now they actually go back to a very early point in evolutionary divergence, and that is with sponges. So this is really early. This is before bilaterians, which are the organisms that have sort of a notochord, a backbone, and then they have the two symmetrical sides. Of course, sponges are radial symmetric, and they have this different type of body organization. So this is a long time ago in evolutionary history, and sponges and bilaterians diverged a long time ago, or their lineages diverged. But you still see these neuropeptides being expressed in cells and in tissues that don't have anything to do directly with neurons. And so, and the same goes with synaptic proteins. They're expressed in tissues that in marine invertebrates that are, very far removed from neurons. So I think this is an interesting paper to look at if you're interested in this deep evolutionary history. The Bradenburg Vehicles paper, or the Bradenburg Vehicles channel, this is the thing that Ankit was talking about earlier, this video. I programmed some creatures and they evolved. And then this is Ankit's note about the kill neurons. So this is a nice example of bistability. So yeah, we'll look into that. I'll go through that and try to write that up. I know we need to write like a literature review for the switching paper, and if we don't put it in the Gecko paper, we'll definitely do some more work on this. So I'm going to look into this, and there, this is going to be an interesting kind of literature review, because it's going to go very far afield, and we're going to bring in things from different areas. So thank you for pointing that out. Cognition futures, we have, this was something Arthur posted. This is an article by a Brazilian scientist explaining a different view on the theories of cognitive architecture. And so Jesse responded with, would you want to make a presentation on this? So he might make a presentation. Yeah, he'll prepare one when he comes to the meeting next. And this article itself is Evolutionary Cognitive Science, Constraints and Unification. So this is actually an evolutionary approach to cognition and constraints and how they play a role in cognitive architectures. So we'll let Arthur talk about that more maybe next week or the week after, whenever he's able to do so. The Data Science channel, we have a couple of things here. It's pretty busy, actually. So this is, I think, from this week, spiking neural nets. So there's a spiking neural nets. I don't know what this is. Is this a paper? Or is this a summer school?
Yeah, it's like an article.
Oh, okay. So this is a nice article on AI Summer is the blog, I guess.
I think this is the optimum Morgan was actually talking about.
Oh, okay. So this is from the thing you're talking about with the. Okay.
This is the student. He just this is his thesis work. So it's kind of a kind of like towards data science article that's capturing some of his thesis work.
Okay.
His thesis is in Greek, but he will provide a rough translation for those interested. And just covering. He does some intro examples with SNN torch.
Okay. So this is when you say SNN torch. This is like a
it's like a PyTorch for spiking neural nets.
Oh wow! Right.
The author, like it's his like PhD thesis or like his master's thesis?
Yeah, no, he's. I think he's just an undergrad.
Nice.
I could be wrong, because he was saying that he was trying to get his military service done. I think before he went on to grad school, but
Okay.
yeah.
Where did you contact him?
On LinkedIn.
Okay, you sourced up his name was LinkedIn. Nice.
Yeah, and he's in a suburb of Athens.
Yeah. This goes through kind of the what they're talking about in the. So this is like this is sort of the model that they're using, leaky, integrate, and fire, and then you go through the sort of the spiking neural networks and the. It has some nice interactive graphs, so you can look at like how changing the parameters changes the model, and then you have information encoding. They use Poisson encoding, which is this where you have Poisson distribution of. Okay, so then, yeah.
I was looking at his LinkedIn just right now. Like, yeah, no wonder it took him like so long to like complete his bachelor's. Like, it took him like from 16 to 21 he did his bachelor's. And normally it's usually 4 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's expected to write the thesis in like this much time.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's definitely doing engineering. So I don't know what he's.
He is doing electrical engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes in the States the engineering program will be 5 years.
Yeah.
And they're kind of
really?
getting. Yeah. It's it can depend on the program and kind of what you're doing, but he might have been building stuff too.
Yeah. Looks like
he said he was hoping to get hardware. He was for neuromorphic hardware, but they were like in the process of building something, or he was waiting for other groups in Greece to build something. So I don't know how involved with that he was. But it's nice to. I mean, he replied and he's been very responsive. So he does seem to be kind of busy right now. So I didn't want to press him on this about coming and talking about this work.
Yeah.
But he definitely plans to return to it.
Yeah.
Actually, this reminds me that one of the persons I attended NeuroMatch with, like about 2 people, it reminded me. One of the guy, he's not into working in SNS, but he also took like 6 years to complete his bachelor. But in that, like he was from Princeton, if I'm not wrong. His name is Ryan, and like he did like a double major in mathematics and machine learning. So and he also like did GSOC 2 times, and he also did a startup 2 times. Like that was a lot more. And he also did a thesis in the same amount of time, and so that's what it was. And another thing, maybe I could ask him to like present. Uh, One of the person who was in my group, his PhD thesis was on spiking neural nets.
Oh, cool.
He was like doing research on that, so maybe I could like contact him and like ask him to present something if you.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
He was working. He was at this University of Tübingen.
Yeah, Tübingen. Yeah.
Yeah, Tübingen. He was PhD student there, so maybe like I could ask him. Yeah, this way.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. You know, I mean, I know some people, look at this as really efficient, or there's so many interesting perspectives on these spiking neural nets, right? And again, I brought this up to him since we're talking about Human Brain Project. So what's called now eBrains. You can use NeuroMedics.net to create a raw simulation, right, in Gazebo, and still have the agents be implemented with neuromorphic hardware remotely, and this resource exists, and there's some examples I think from Technical University of Munich that helped set up neurobotics.net for these. So I think it's cool interdisciplinary work that captures a lot of great Bratenberg principles.
Yeah, I noticed that. I also noticed I was looking at this, and he's bringing up dynamic vision sensors and some of these other things. This looks like there could be a lot of tie-ins to the Gibsonian information work too, because you're dealing with.
Another thing. The research lab at which he's working at currently, one of them published like a really good like a paper, if I'm not wrong, in NeuroMatch. Just give me a second. I will show that paper.
Sure.
Okay, let me unshare my.
Like I couldn't really understand what the paper was about. It was so heavy in math. Just give me a second. I have it saved. Have you heard about this FIAS group?
No.
Let me see. Sorry, I'm just seeing Jesse's.
Oh, about the
Yeah.
This week in evolutionary history. Yes.
Yeah, this is the paper, or like what is it? Short talk.
Okay.
Is it in Slack or?
Yeah, I'm putting. Yeah.
Okay.
It's so heavy in math, I just couldn't understand.
So this is an
It's a
abstract.
chat.
Okay. Yeah.
They have a preprint, so you can open up the preprint.
Oh, I can't. I'm not signed in.
All right, I'll share my screen here. Okay. Yeah, this is the preprint here. Crowdcast. So they have the Crowdcast video preprint. I guess it's on the Discord as well, or you can make a discussion about it on Discord. Preprint is archive link here. And this is the... So this is the abstract. Rank similarity filters for computationally efficient machine learning on high-dimensional data. So this is FIAS. Is the
Rank
group.
similarity filters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really mathematical.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not opening up the archive link. It's kind of delayed, but it's okay. Yeah, we'll just you can link the preprint off of this, and you have to log into the NeuroMatch website to get to see.
Do you mind if I share?
Oh yeah, let me let you share your screen here. All right. Go ahead. All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Confusion-based rank similarity filters. So confusion, this is somewhat related to information theory or something. Not
Well, it's probably related to like confusion matrix
Yeah.
not sure.
from
Yes.
ROC. From ROC analysis.
Yeah.
RSC.
ROC.
I'm just get. I mean,
Yeah, just taking a guess at what it means.
just yeah. If you say confusion matrix.
I don't think it's that.
Oh, okay.
It's related to this, yeah.
Confusion.
Confusion and
Okay.
diffusion.
Ah, okay.
So that's what I was thinking. Means we should so this is related to crypto. So like,
Okay. Sure.
let us see the paper.
Confusion based.
It's a really interesting paper that caught my eye. Okay, see, I was reading it, yeah. Yeah, it's from Frankfurt Institute of Advanced Studies, FIA.
Oh, okay. So that's FI, yes.
Confusion-based rank similarity filters for computationally efficient machine learning.
Yeah. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So it's non-linear range similarity classifier.
And I see their PyPy as well.
Where?
Just their PyPy.
Yeah, the repository.
Their repository. Yeah, it's rank similarity.
Where is it given the paper or like?
No, here I'll put the link in the.
Yeah, it's just their PyPy repository for the
Oh
software.
yeah. This one I had seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to see how they summarize it there, and
So they have a package and this is X, this is Y. So it uses a rank similarity classifier and predicts it. So they must have given some examples. Wait,
Yeah.
Desh, online document. Okay. Oh, so it's compatible with scikit-learn pipelines.
Okay, yeah.
So like you can directly use their what do you call it, library in a scikit-learn pipeline. So that's a really good API. It has the same API like that. Okay, probably they should be giving some examples somewhere. So it's a bit like scikit-learn, to be honest.
Yeah.
well, everybody should be following.
Should be
Scikit-learn.
Transform example, let's look at it. Nice transform makes an unsupervised nonlinear transformation using digital data set with counting force.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to put that in.
Hello, Erin.
So is it like a PC or something?
I'm not sure. They just, when they say a nonlinear filter, it can be. That can be so many. Sorry, nonlinear classification and transform. Right. That
When
makes
I
it.
think of filters, it kind of reminds me of Kalman filter.
Could I yeah. I'm interested to read more.
Yeah, so I think this is somehow like related to like what Kalman filter does,
Okay.
but I think they are using where is it? Using this as a non-linear transformation and using something, some matrix rank method, something, and
Well, I definitely want to get it, but what how to understand the word confusion in this. you know,
yeah, I'll go to the paper in a second.
because I mean, I if it's like an information theoretic way of using it,
Let's go to the paper. I think.
I
Yeah.
wonder
Yeah, they have mentioned.
if it's
Let me see where they have mentioned. Oh, what's this? Okay, we have confusion. The weights of the rank similarity filter are set using rank orders of the features in the data points, or optionally the confusion adjusted rank between the features. Did you get
it seems
understand?
like a I mean, I don't have a good sense of that, but
So they're perturbing the rank order with this confusion approach. Almost.
Okay, I think they have described. Maybe this is what confusion is. Yeah, I think this is what.
Metric measure confusion.
One second, just let
Okay.
me scroll through.
Yeah, it's a
There's
probability.
something called confusion matrix also in statistics, I think. Confusion
Yeah,
matrix.
yeah. But this
So
is
he's
a
probably
different
sorting it. Oh, sorry.
Okay. So I'm convinced this is somehow related to Kalman filter, but they have defined the confusion here. So like maybe if you could also want to take a look at it, because I didn't understand what this is.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about it in the channel a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but a lot of these papers are opaque with respect to what the definitions are. It's like you have to go back 2 or 3 papers.
I'm going to throw this in the comments for you. It might help you. It's the same thing I was talking about, a confusion matrix, but it gives you the way to sort it. I'm not sure if it's what you're talking about.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, is it just me or this formula is a bit like KL divergence?
Kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because see,
sure.
here they're doing like if f and g are entirely disjoint, confusion be 0, and f is like equivalent to g, confusion take as a maximum value of 0.5. So I think this is some way they are discriminating between the distributions. I think this is their own term they have invented somehow. Maybe like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, if you go down to that next paragraph, I think it's no up yeah right. They're talking about it with respect to these others.
Okay, so basically, like the
Yeah.
similarity part comes from this confusion itself, I think. Because it's
Comparison
actually-
of confusion with other probability distance.
Yeah. So, yeah, they talk about KL divergence in that paragraph.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'll just go through this quickly
Okay.
so that you can discuss other things.
And
And here's the algorithm. Okay, so this is about like how they're calculating the filters.
yeah.
Okay, it's about this confusion term was actually really confusing.
Yeah.
Well, there's truth in advertising.
Because like there are like already 2 places like where we have confusion. So this is about how they're initializing the filters. and finally they're using some other kind of filter, and this is the entire transformation that we do while using fit predict something like that.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of math.
All right.
I think we'll have to look at their talk. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Looks pretty good.
What have they used? They've used MNist, fashion MNist. Yeah, it's nice. This is a nice paper actually.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great group there.
Yeah.
The results are actually also like pretty good.
Can we move on to a couple other?
Yeah, exactly. I'll stop sharing now.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for that, Ankit. That was good. It was good to kind of go through and work, like get our hands dirty in that paper. So let me share my screen, and I'm going to go back and finish up some of the Slack things here, and then we want to talk about NeuroMatch. I think also, well, there are a couple of events coming up this week I want to talk about. So, so that was the data science channel. Then Dev AI has. This is an interesting quote here, but someone said on Twitter, babies do nothing even remotely similar to reinforcement learning to learn skills. To which there was, I think, a response that maybe they do, probably not. It depends on what kind of learning you mean. The typical Twitter back and forth. But I think that's an interesting...
If you scroll down, like, he actually says a mix of, you know,
yeah.
He talks about like 5 different techniques, you know.
Right.
But I did notice that Conrad Cording just took the initial tweet and said, if babies don't do RL, then I've got questions. I was like, scroll down. read the other.
I wish they were more precise in titles. I hate it when journalists do that. It should be something like the entirety of what babies do is not.
But how would they get us to click through?
Yeah.
I'd still click.
Yeah, it's nice to see sort of the different camps come out in the discussion.
Right. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's, you know, I mean, there's some things, and it depends on what kind of learning you're talking about. You're talking about like speaking, or you're talking about like some sort of like reward where there's a reward tied into it. Like, you know, maybe if a baby touches a hot stove, you know, they kind of learn not to do that because the stove is hot. There's no reward there except not burning their hand, but it's kind of like there's a reinforcement element of that versus something like maybe learning language or object permanence or something. So I'd like people to kind of think about that a little bit. And, you know, if you want to share your takes in the channel here, that would be great, because I'd like to see what people come up with on that.
There was an interesting paper, and I won't go into it. I didn't read it. I just looked at the abstract, but it was about how, you know, it was in the sense of, here's a highly structured, you know, end goal that we're optimizing for that a child's doing, but it was something about the nature of like even I forget what the age range was. It was very early, and it's how like the nature of attention shifting and how the attention shifting was kind of related to, you know, similar to reinforcement learning and stuff like that. And that'd be if people were really interested in that topic, that'd be a great thing to kind of like almost like have a panel discussion about that, where you look at a position on it and discuss it more. So I mean, I think one thing also, like, you know, the just to state this, and a lab management, put my lab manager hat on, the current format of our lab meetings isn't how it's always been. And if people would like to have a specific, like, built-up discussion about a topic, such as this same thing we just mentioned, and like actually thinking about it, prepare for it a week rather than like an impromptu discussion, that's a great thing to do. And we can also, that also is like a nice way to consolidate discussion, or like we can come back to it later in more concentrated format. So just to say, like, I know for newer people or people who haven't been around, people coming back or looking in on YouTube or the internets, or I imagine, I think Arthur might be checking in on this later. But like, feel free to suggest, hey, I would like to have a discussion, my own presentation, or a paper review, or some kind of consolidated error period of time where we do that. Because I think the last thing we talked about would be like a really cool thing to get into. And we kind of do this sometimes, like around bigger actual, like the event called the AI debate, or the things that happen. But we just haven't done that explicitly in the last month or so, really. But just saying, like, we can do that, and it's a great thing to do. So yeah.
Yeah. We should definitely, if people want to cover a topic, I know we have like kind of loose ends that we kind of explore, but it'd be nice to have like a more focused kind of debate on these things. And the AI debate, I think 3 is coming up soon, so that's something that we usually, when we have these events, we have shared notes documents, and that's another thing we do. And usually Jesse and I are involved, but sometimes other people, and it's just where we generate a document, and then you have access to it, write access, and then you're watching the event on Zoom, maybe a couple of us in different places, and we just kind of, as we walk through, we watch the video, we get impressions about what we think is important. So we take screenshots, we'll make notes in the document, and then it'll just be like, I have different views on it maybe than Morgan or Jesse or Erin might, and so everyone has their own sort of perspective in that document. Maybe people watch other things, and maybe I can catch something in the morning, maybe Morgan can catch something in the afternoon. We have the notes or both of those. So those are pretty fertile places for this kind of thing, but we don't really pull it apart, and sometimes we'll go over it in the meetings, but it's just to have those different perspectives out there. So I mean, those are things we do sometimes with events, but also this more focused kind of, I don't know if I'd call it a debate, but definitely like sharing your perspective on something, and then people kind of sharing their perspective on it, and but it's more organized. So
And if there's like, and I don't know if this would be, I'm like, again, administrative stuff, but like, maybe it can be filtered into a channel or something, or like if it's mentioned in the Slack somewhere, but like, it'd be cool to have a featured discussion and to have people a little bit of prep time, so they know, like, oh, hey, this year we're going to talk about reinforcement learning in infants, and does that happen or not? Yeah, and like that way you can think, oh, I'm going to read my background reading materials and think about this thing. We've done that. It sort of takes on different shapes because this group covers so many things, but in the past, either directly or indirectly, there's been some reading groups on different topics, like the cognition future stuff, or embodied cognition, or like some things about some technical stuff, and some things related to like brain brain vehicles, I think. So just put that out there. Okay, we can. I know we kind of we're rapidly passing through time, so I'll keep my interruptions.
Oh, it's okay. Ankit said in the chat, "This is a good article, Erin, related to feature selection." This is the one Erin posted up about now rank again. But it seems the paper was relating more to matrix ranks and filters, something like that, and confusion. Well, that's a confusion. Yeah. So that's, well, you can follow up on that. So let me go to the Ethics Society and Tech channel. And this is where we have Angela posted something on the Optimist DAO, Aragon Voice. So this is an optimistic governance solution. So she's interested in governance, in like emergent governance. Jesse responded with the eyes. Then I think this one here, which was I posted, what is the standard way of auditing data privacy for machine learning models? And so this is, I think, a talk and an archive paper on this. So this is on, I think the archive is not responding for me today for some reason, but this is on, we have designed strong membership inference attacks that can help measure the precise information leakage of models about their training data. So this is a auditing and data privacy thing. Let's see. Now let's go to, I think there was something in math. I know there are things coming up in the different channels, but I'm trying to catch up on some of the stuff that's been. So Morgan posted something on physics-enhanced deep surrogates for partial differential equations. So these are physics-enhanced deep surrogate PEDs, the PEDs approach. This is developing fast surrogate models for complex physical systems. You know, usually you describe them with partial differential equations. So that's a nice paper there. It's in math, open chat forum. Maybe the open chat forum is a good place to put these focused discussions, or, you know, maybe not. I don't know if we need a separate channel. But we've typically done stuff in this channel.
Open chats are great. Like, if you have any idea, like it can be, it's just an open place to put ideas you maybe like to discuss or things you'd like to do. Feel free to just put it in there.
Yeah, and this is Jesse's post that he made. So last week he presented on some of the stuff they were doing at the MIT AI Ethics Reading Group, and he put up it on his own blog. So this was not on the lab blog, but this was on his WordPress about just the notes from that meeting. Actually, Jesse, wanted to put together a longer post or something more consolidated. You can put it up on the lab medium as well.
Yeah, I've been back and forth about this for a very, very long time, but I just, particularly because I find WordPress, and I was debating between using WordPress or blog posts like you do for synthetic daisies.
Yeah.
But I have an older WordPress site that it's just there and has some stuff. It's like, all right, I wanted to start just posting some retrievable notes, and Medium is very good for reading, but I find it terrible for organizing unless you're doing a Google search.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start putting some generally unrefined notes there, and I don't expect them to be highly visible or whatever, but just more like almost like a slight, external. Notion's nice, but it's not quite what I want to do. So I'll put something there, but yeah, like getting to like higher level, it's sort of like a step between that and Medium. So yes, I totally agree. And again, another thing anybody could do, one thing you could do is propose a discussion, or you could say, I'd like to write a blog article, and it could be something we feature in our actual lab stuff, or on synthetic daisies, or a small thing on your own, a small writing of your own, and then we build on it and go from there. So like just, keeping in mind ways to be maybe active learning or developing skills that you'll be using in your career by writing. I think those are always things to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely writing is always something people should keep up with as a skill. And the best way to do that is to do stuff. Write about what you want. Like, so in the chat, we've got a conversation between Ankit and Erin. You can write in the chat, but I mean, like, writing like essays or things. Even if you just write up notes about a paper and just fashion it into like some, paragraphs, it's just to start and just to keep up with that.
Yeah, and even like, I don't think we're going to go in this direction per se, but like, I think it's almost like the NeuroMatch setup itself, like having some flash talks, whether you prepare a 5-minute talk or even a 5-minute like simple blog article that you just throw together on some, it doesn't have to be on a blog, but just some small thing like that as a reference point, and have discussion around that for a set time and like go back to it later. I think that's sort of like that's a cool thing to think about in terms of like actually functionally getting things going. But yeah, I'm sorry again.
That sounds really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So this.
One more thing
Go ahead.
that I wanted to like suggest was that we have like a neuroscience networks channel, right?
Yeah, we do have a channel. Neuroscience.
So like instead of having like neuroscience networks, like would we have like two separate ones, like one for neuroscience, the other for networks?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, this is I guess the idea here was that we had neuroscience and then we had network neuroscience, kind of in the same thing. And we don't talk about usually we don't talk about networks in general, but if you want to have like a networks channel, we could have one.
So if it's smart, so like if I have anything related to networks, should I post it over there only? Because it becomes a little bit confusing and I have to post related to like neuroscience and
I'm not sure if we already have a channel for it. Like something similar to I don't think we really have something for networks per se. Like you mean like neural networks, correct?
No, networks only.
Just like complex networks?
Network theory.
Oh, network theory? Yeah.
Yeah, stuff related to that if I wanted to.
Yeah, so
I have a few papers actually.
Well, we could create a network theory channel.
I mean, will that fit in like math or data ML or?
So in network theories, you would basically have like a little bit of discrete math, and inside discrete math, you'll have graph theory, and besides graph theory, you will have a little bit of network analysis, network science, social network analysis stuff. And besides that, what you will have that's really famous right now is like graph machine learning, graph neural networks. Yeah. So that would probably be related to like networks. And also, neuroscience networks.
Why don't we put it in math, and then we can rename this channel Math Neuros, like a network sci or math network science. So it's like math, and then also because this neuroscience networks originally was like network science, and with neuroscience sort of in the mix, and then it just became like neuroscience and networks in the brain.
So maybe we could have like two different one for neuroscience and the other for network science. That sounds much better.
Yeah. Could you do that, Jesse? Could you make that channel or?
Yeah, I can. What are we calling it?
Just network science.
NetSci.
Yeah, NetSci.
Yeah. And just rename that neuroscience networks to just neuroscience.
Yeah.
I just dropped in a link of the that's happened yesterday, 25th, 26th at the Montreal AI in neuroscience meeting, the educational workshop, and that was it. Kind of relates to the kind of networks that we're interested in neuroscience, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
They're using math techniques to infer networks in the brain.
Okay.
Game happened already.
Network science channel created. Okay.
Morgan, could you share other interesting stuff related to mail? I think I missed mail.
Sure. No. You just missed. So if you go to neuroscience networks, there.
Okay, it's in neuroscience networks. Yeah.
Neuroscience networks. Yeah. So
At
the last link there is just a something that came out of the last 2 days of the educational workshop. This is not the main meeting.
Okay.
It's not the main meeting.
Yeah.
I get it.
But it's just they were covering, in particular, NILearn. So that's this is Gail Verqua's project that sits on top of scikit-learn and NIBabel. And it's I mean it's what you'd expect, right? It's like
You might also want to check out, like I'm posting this in neuroscience.
Sure, but Steve Struga has a new or relatively new paper that I think is really great of network science. It's definitely like math network science, and it's like looking at high dimensional dynamical systems on graphs and the kind of structures that that you should expect. Like there's he calls them an octopus, but which I thought was funny. But these octopuses that you should find. That seems like a great net sci paper.
I think this workshop, if you want to share it for a second, this was like pretty good. Like if you go to the main branch of it, I posted it.
Yeah, it's super cool stuff, right? I mean, it's because the Montreal group in particular. One, there's a bunch of French-speaking people there that have great links to the scikit-learn team, right? And so they're just building out all this, great, fMRI work on top of scikit-learn. So I think it's actually a really great way to get into scikit-learn. Because all the examples are, very compatible. And you think a lot more about doing experiments with scikit-learn.
Yeah.
Is the kind of material that you'll see covered with these projects. But lots of cool stuff. It was 2 days. I'm hoping they taped everything. I will be really disappointed in them if they. But the main conference doesn't start until the main doesn't start until
I just
Tuesday.
checked it out. It starts on 29 till 30.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah,
I think what Jesse was saying, that we should write something. So like what we could do is that we could write, like some of us could attend like me, and like each of us, like whatever talk or paper, something we find interesting, we could then create a combined blog, like interesting papers at May 2021, and put it at like our blog.
Yeah.
That's something.
And I think it's I don't think it's I think it's very in the spirit of Maine, that GL flow or
G flow net, right?
G flow, I think they were getting ready for Maine. And what I mean by that, that like this really is supposed to be they are putting forward ideas that these are like foundational projects that will be the basis for a number of other things, right? G flow in particular, and I think that would be a great idea to characterize all the talks, or things that stood out, and in particular things that we'll probably be seeing for quite a while.
Yeah.
Or we'll be seeing more and more. And one of the things they talk about in G flow is inference across graphs. This being one of the tractable inference across graphs.
It's a bit complicated for me, to be honest.
But but that's, I mean, and like maybe that's would be a great reason for like doing a focused, smaller but more focused intro to the ideas that they're getting across. Because like the capsule network stuff, I remember we talked about it at Neurotech X, or at least Neurotech San Francisco. We talked about it when they came out, and it was hard for us to get a grip on, because it didn't seem like a lot of the conventional metrics, it didn't seem to make a difference, or it seemed like more work, and it really was. It was like, well, yeah, because we're not like doing robotics, or we weren't analyzing film. We were sort of using the old static image nets and things, and like that was, capsules were kind of created for, or they would shine in particular scenarios, right? And unless you were doing those, dealing with, dynamic video, it wouldn't necessarily be important. I think it would be really great to dive in. It's 70 pages. It's a big long slog. But there's too many. This is the big problem with ML, right? So like you get drowned in all these papers. They're all good math papers, right? It's like we're coming into PS, and it's we know we're going to be like re-drowned. Like so many good quality papers, right? But it would be nice to pick out one and focus on that is going to be really foundational for entering into new domains. And again, is this a paper that will allow you to handle data sets that previously were intractable?
I'm not sure about that really. Three things that I wanted to bring to you. The first thing, if anyone wants to use GPT-3, I think GPT-3 is now, if I'm not wrong, it's no longer in the private beta. I think it's in the public beta. So anyone who wants to use GPT-3 or wants to do any experiment, or wants to create something, you can do it now. Then another thing that I had an idea was we could maybe kind of experiment with these rank similarity filters while doing neural decoding. This seems really interesting.
Yeah.
Seeing what happens when we apply these rank similarity filters while doing neural decoding. That's something we want to see how it works. And because I think there are few people in the lab who would be interested. I think Krishna already has one flash talk at NeuroMatch. So I think he would be interested as well. So
Yeah.
that's something I'm going to definitely try.
Okay. You have a third thing, or?
Yeah, this is
My dog got caught in this box. There's candy in there.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good.
Sorry, I missed the has GPT-3 is GPT-3 able to respond to my email yet?
Yeah.
I mean, GPT-3, it can actually do autocomplete. It can do a lot of things. So if you could automate the part where you send the email, it could probably write your email. It can actually. I think one of the cool things that I did with GPT-3 was that if you give it a code sample, then it can summarize what that code sample is doing.
Yeah, I think this is all very interesting stuff. I might suggest having a discussion in Slack about how to use GPT-3 for things, because I know we have very limited time right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we can do something like that. I also have some ideas of how we might do some things. I know Zero was interested in doing some things. He's from Georgia, the country Georgia, and they have a very unique language there. And it'd be interesting to see if, maybe what GPT-3 could do is some of that data, although I don't know how. It's not trained on that language, but, I don't know. I mean, it's something to follow. So there are a lot of things to follow up on here, but so I think we're done with the Slack review, and keep posting in there. And if you have any, if you want to maybe have a discussion, we can do it outside of Slack. Even we can, like post I don't want to say a manifesto, but if you have like a plan for something, we can do this like in a Google Doc or in a blog post if it's something you don't mind sharing with people. I wanted to share. Okay, yeah, we could fine tune it. So I wanted to go through some of the events that are coming up. So we talked about Maine. We had the Maine education, which is this here, and this is parallel to the Maine conference, which is this conference, Montreal AI and Neuroscience. So this is the Neuro AI group, and this year it starts Monday and Tuesday, and it goes through Tuesday. And of course, I submitted the abstract and video on the developmental AI stuff. So Jesse tweeted this out, and it's gotten like 6 or 7 retweets and likes. So people are looking at it. Yeah. So good. But you can register up to the time when it starts. I think it's going to be on Crowdcast, so you can see all the talks on Crowdcast, but you have to register through their registration portal, and then they send you like a link to the Crowdcast. So Crowdcast is where everything is recorded, but you can access it anytime, but you have to log in. There will be keynotes here, so there are a number of different people here: neuroscience people, AI people, cognitive science people, and a mix of Dan Dennett's going to be there, for example. So he's a philosopher of cognition, neuroscience. There'll be activism, advocacy, and allyship in neuro AI. Let's see if there's anything else. Just a lot of different topics that you might be interested in. So Paul Cizek will be there. Who we've talked about his work on neuroevolution. So it starts at I think like 8 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're on the West Coast, it's a little early, but like I said, again, it's all going to be recorded. All sorts of really interesting talks. Tracking turbulent plumes of deep reinforcement learning. Principled methods for comparing neural representations across biological and artificial networks. Representational transformations in the human visual system. So this really gets like at a lot of the topics we cover in the meetings. So and then I'm going to, I don't know when these abstracts are going to be made public or accepted or whatever, but we'll have that. I'll let people know as soon as we get that to that point. So that's earlier in the week. It's Monday and Tuesday. Then I think this is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, or Thursday and Friday when NeuroMatch happens. And this is NeuroMatch 4, and so it's basically this coming week. So you can register anytime before the 2nd, which is Thursday, and then you can attend Thursday and Friday. So this is shorter than the last NeuroMatch, which was like a week long. We have a lot of keynote speakers. Danny Bassett's going to be there. She does a lot of stuff on brain networks and mathematics of the brain and other things like that.
Yeah.
We have people
Physics.
We have a cross between AI and neuroscience here again. So, you'll have people talking about reinforcement learning, talking about the brain, talking about all these different things. So, and of course, you can find new ideas or collaborators. And then if you're registered, you can get into the abstract browser. And this is where our abstracts are. We have, I think, 3 abstracts that I know of. We have the switching paper. We have the switching talk. We have the Gibsonian information talk. And then we have the talk with, what is it, Jesse? What's the name of the talk?
The allostasis one?
Yeah, the allostasis one. I don't exactly know what
it's basically like allostatic kinds, and it's about allostatic kinds and some.
And that allostatic types and natural kinds. And so we have, So I guess we have did we get the talk for this submitted, or?
Yes.
Okay, so these will be in video form. I don't know, and I did look over the talk, and I thought it was pretty good. There's like a limited amount of time to do this, so let me see if we have Gibsonian information here. The times are listed here in your own time zone, so you set the time zone and you can see when it is. But I think they're recorded, so you can watch it later. And then this is for Gibsonian information, and this is for the switching one. This is universal theory of switching. So those are all over 3 talks, and they have a really odd timing. Like this one's at 4:40 a.m. my time, so I'm going to try to make the talk. I don't know why. I don't know if you need to be there for it or what. They don't really send instructions, but if you plan to attend, it's it's 24 hours. They stretch across time. Usually they try to fit it to different people's time zones, but there is a lot of stuff that will be happening like in the middle of the night your time, so don't worry about that. You can probably catch it later. So it should be a good time.
I actually forgot someone else's paper. I think Krishna also submitted a paper had a flash talk on neural decoding.
Okay, let's see if I can find it. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, see, that's the post.
So this is Krishna's neural decoding by machine learning. So this is another one you want to catch, and this is on the 2nd. So they're all, I think, on the 2nd. You can check the date and the time, and then he has some references here. So this is a good example of, Krishna. We did a talk last NeuroMatch on the difference between artificial and biological neural networks. So, this is a good opportunity to present to a larger audience. So that's good. And then the AI debate is coming up, so I don't know when that is actually, but I'll find out and put it in the Slack.
December.
What was that?
I think it's at the end of December.
Okay.
The start of January.
All right. And then, of course, NeurIPS is coming up too in the next 2 weeks or so. We don't have anything submitted for that, but that'll be, I think, online and a good opportunity.
Yeah, but, Charlotte and I will both definitely be at the metacognition workshop.
Okay, yeah. Is that something that you need to register for? Or?
I know we volunteered or have other means of getting in. I don't know how it will be in terms of, I don't know the specific answer to that, but if it's available, I'll try to see about getting people in from here.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. If you're interested, get in touch with Jesse. So we had a good conversation between Erin and Ankit on the stuff about the rank order and the confusion stuff. And then we have, did you know Benjio's son was the author of GFlowNet? Yeah, Benjio's son is involved in, December is super busy. So that's good. So we have a couple minutes left, and I might go to a paper here or two just to kind of round things out. So we might go a little bit over here. I don't know if we have anything I can really get into. Let's see. We have this. I don't want to get into anything too difficult. We have this flowchart AI thing. We have this floating around. So this is. What is artificial intelligence? We drew a flowchart to answer your questions. And Jesse said, how the times have changed. Interesting way to start with almost the 5 senses, though. And Jesse then followed up with, I would rather, it says, yes, it's potential using applications of machine learning rather than, yup, it's using AI, but that's me. Something to discuss this weekend. What was that?
Well said. Be precise. I think it's confusing people who are trying to get into this and learn it if they are imprecise with the language that they're using because they're not thinking of it strategically, and with grammar, you have to be more precise than they are.
Yeah, and like AI, the remark about how times have changed is that alone, a decade or so ago, and you, Bradley, would know more than me, but like people didn't call it AI. Everything's AI now, and
Yeah.
at least like machine learning was a specific subset of this, that, and other thing, and now it's like everything's AI is the word to use, and that's kind of where we're moving.
Actually, it's just like metaverse.
Yeah, networks are another example. And actually, they have like, well, it started as graph theory, then they had like social networks, which were the main application, and then now it's like complex networks. But then there's also like computer networks, and there's like neural networks. So it's like, technically they're all networks, but it's like, AI again. Technically, it's all AI, but like, there's what they call GoFi, which is good old fashioned AI, which is like the stuff that you would have found in the 60s and 70s. And then there's like, machine learning and deep learning, which have their own sort of live in their own world. So it's definitely, I agree that, there's this precisional language. And this is something we've talked about with the trajectories work, is that, it's kind of like a matter of how does that precision change over time, and, how do you describe things? Right.
They're confusing the models.
Yeah. That's good.
What was I gonna say about that? That was a specific. I don't know if there's a link to the specific article, but like the article, like it kind of like it basically, if I'm remembering correctly, it kind of filtered. It was like it was a flow chart. Oh yeah, it was one of those sort of like modern flow charts where it has all these inputs and outputs, and most of them basically were like, oh yeah, it leads to AI, but then it was just kind of like a pictorial example of how much, excuse me, of how much everything is kind of called AI nowadays, and yeah, I guess Ankit said the metaverse, and like, did you mean Ankit like?
I mean, like what
Everything
basically like, yeah, that's what I meant. Like basically the thing is like, Mark is trying to market the metaverse, and everything now that's going to be created is like being called the metaverse.
Yeah,
Like it's just like a marketing trick to get more
right,
customers.
and that's like
the
especially for
same
like
thing with AI.
yeah, especially for like startups and funding and saying, oh, your AI enhanced stuff, and now our AI enhanced, copyrighted GTP3 now enhanced by GTP3. And I say this as someone, like one of my friends, a very good friend of mine, built a company using GTP3 related stuff, basically, and like at the same time as it like anyway, that's a whole debate. That's definitely a debate to have.
Yeah.
It was Twilio or which company, I don't know. They were using some like model called Prophet for forecasting. That model was like horribly bad. Like it's like a time series forecasting model created by Facebook and it's called Prophet. PROPHET. And like many people say that's like really bad one. And personally, I've experienced that as well. It's not really good, in my opinion as well. So that model, the entire team was using Prophet, and it was so bad that because of the forecast, it kind of ended up firing some half of their team, and like they kind of ended up selling much of the property. I don't know what it happened, but that completely, yeah, it misfired completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to go over any other papers, Bradley? And also, I know Erin generally wasn't here in the burning, but like, if you had any particular updates for the group,
Yeah, Erin, did you have any updates?
I kind of meant. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no. Thank you though.
I mentioned.
Oh,
I mentioned earlier we may be looking at some like data science training stuff, but that's about it.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so that's the flowchart AI, and then I also wanted to get into let's see what else. oh, this paper might be good. Life of Behavior. This is a new paper. So there was a paper a couple of years ago called Neuroscience Needs Behavior. And so this paper is, I don't know, maybe it's a follow-up to it, but it's definitely in the same vein. One of the authors, Gonzalez, also was on the other paper. And so this is basically, again, they're advocating that neuroscience needs like a behavioral perspective, because a lot of people work with cells and with genes, and they don't really. I mean, sometimes, well, people do work with behavior, but it's not a primary sort of approach. And so the abstract reads, neuroscience needs behavior. However, it is daunting to render the behavior of organisms intelligible without suppressing most, if not all, references to life. When animals are treated as passive stimulus response, such as what we do in like a lot of experiments, or even in like reinforcement learning, or in some forms of like machine learning and deep learning, we're kind of playing off that sort of model where we think of stimulus response, and instead of an animal, it's a model of a brain. But anyways, disembodied and identical machines. So again, we talk about embodiment, and one of the reasons we do is because it provides another dimension to these models. The life of behavior perishes. So basically, these two things here, where you have a passive stimulus response and a disembodied machine that doesn't have any individual variation, the life of this behavior perishes. So you just can't study or consider behavior without with these two things being true. Here we distill three biological principles: materiality, agency, and historicity, which is the history of the organism, the agency of the organism, and the material of the organism, or the agent, I guess you could say. Spell out their consequences for the study of animal behavior, and illustrate them with various examples from the literature. We propose to put behavior back into context with the brain in a species' typical body, and with the animal's body situated in the world. Stamp Newtonian time with nested ontogenetic and phylogenetic processes. So ontogenetic means developmental. People refer to it as ontogeny, more like in terms of how development unfolds, especially in terms of behavior. So the acquisition of different things in development, that's what they refer to as ontogeny, not ontology, but ontogeny. And then phylogenetic processes, which means that these things evolve and that we have a evolutionary history. They give rise to individuals in their own histories and supplement linear cause-effect chains in information processing with circular loops of purpose and meaning. We believe that conceiving behavior in these ways is imperative for neuroscience. So this is their vision, and this is like I said, a follow-up to the Neuroscience Needs Behavior paper. So they're advocating for this specific approach. They bring up Maturana and Varela, who advocate for this sort of cybernetic approach to life. They talk about what's their approach? How come I can't remember this? Autopoiesis. And so they use that type of approach, and it basically thinks of life as a circular sort of causal structure. So, life begets life and this sort of thing. So, living systems, they think of this in terms of living systems. They're typically composed of cells, maintain a stable internal state by converting food into usable energy, and grow and reproduce. So they're bringing this sort of a perspective where you have a living system that has a physiology and a morphology into the loop. And so you get into this stuff about goal-directedness and purpose, which, that's a kind of a debatable thing in terms of like living systems, whether they have a purpose or a goal-directedness. Maturana and Varela believe that they did. And other people argue that, living systems are explicitly don't have a purpose, maybe behaviorally, but like in the emergence of complexity, maybe not. So there are a lot of things to debate about here, but they kind of define this in terms of things that are unique to life. So, in terms of behavior and living systems, they have three different, there are three things that play a role in this. morphology and environment, action, perception, closed loops, and purpose. Again, that word purpose, and individuality and historical contingencies. We talk about some of these things in developmental AI, and there's a reason why I kind of bring them up. So, historical contingency is also developmental contingency. So you have one thing, when you make one decision or you have one thing that's put into place, then that leads to other things. And it also constrains you. So you just don't go, anywhere in that space. You have to kind of go down a specific path. Once you start to accumulate things that you do, you have certain options that necessarily follow. And this is a way to build things up in terms of sort of an organized trajectory instead of being, all over the place as a random process would do. These action perception loops, I think, are important in terms of kind of providing a basis for behavior. But this this flies in the face of sort of the stimulus response paradigm where, it's a linear, I take a stimulus and I respond. And then I might have a memory, but the memory is kind of these stimulus response events don't overlap. They don't feed back on one another. And so this is where you get into, when you get the action perception loop, then you kind of break this apart and you say, well, maybe there are cumulative things that happen in the organism. Maybe there are things that only happen when you have cumulative interactions with the environment, things like that. So I think there are a lot of lessons here we can learn about, different things, maybe applying them to agents, as well as this argument for behavior and neuroscience. So they kind of go through how you have this living systems perspective. Then they have an example of tool use by chimpanzees, and this is sort of the cultural transmission aspect of it, where that's an important part of sort of an extension of the biology, that tool use is adaptive. It allows the organism to adapt, but it's outside the organism. It's outside of the stimulus response paradigm. You think about it differently when you think about it in this way versus about tool use differently when you think about it this way versus a stimulus response. So this is their little figure here where they have 3 principles for living organisms. This brain computes in a vat, which is kind of the model of no embodiment. Behavior is a reflex arc, so this is the stimulus response. Again, you don't have this feedback. And then you have this manipulate, and you have this issue of variability is noise to tame. So if you manipulate the brain and it gives you a bunch of different outcomes, people just assume that's noise and we can average it out. But in fact, a lot of that variability is actually important. It's biologically and behaviorally important. So then they get into these things here, which are these different points that they make. The brain has a body. So this, the brain is connected to a larger body that behaves. The behavior is a control loop, which necessitates B, which is where this body and brain behave, and it experiences not only inputs and produces outputs, but it gets feedback. And then you have this variational thing where you have sort of the same goal, but you have different outcomes because of context or because of other things. You don't want to average that out because that's important information. Behavior has some sort of purpose. Again, this is a cat chasing a mouse, so there's a purpose. But then, not everything in a living system is purposeful. And they also talk about purpose in cybernetics. I know we talked here about feedback, but there's a cybernetic aspect to it, where there's this sort of teleological aspect to cybernetic systems. And you have this control loop, and you have this purposeful behavior. And these things kind of feed into cybernetic models of the world. And then finally, this historicity, which is this contingency that gives rise to individuals. So you start at a point in time, you do these events, you do these behaviors, and they accumulate over time, and they lead you to a certain point. This can be true in behavior, this can be true in development, this can even be true in evolution. So it operates at different time scales. This contingency, I believe, is a little bit more important than the purpose, because purpose is maybe proximate, but ultimately you have this sort of contingency that shapes the organism. And so, that this maybe is a bit more important than purpose, although they interact. So I know that's been a lot, but this is a good paper to go through and to look. This is a position paper. They make, I don't think anything they're saying is particularly controversial, but they're making the sort of point that there's this individuality of an agent or a individual, and that behaviorally captures a lot of that in ways that conventional neuroscience and experimentation does not.
Yeah, check out Yale NIVS paper, and I posted in Computational Psychiatry too, for the primacy of behavior.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And of course, her lab tries to do in particular is use behavior to personalize medicine.
Yeah. Do we have any other comments about that, or?
No, that looked cool. Could you send the paper somewhere?
Yeah, I'll put it in the Slack. All right. Well, that sounds good. Oh, we had someone else. Oh, Ankit.
Yeah, so like one last thing that I want to say, since I'm not sure how many were present when I was talking about that switching portion when I was discussing with Bradley. I'm pretty sure Erin was not there, but Morgan, were you present when I was talking at the start about switching?
Yeah.
Were you present? Like I was talking about weights and stuff, that discrete net paper. Were you present?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So like what I wanted to say was like, if anyone's interested, like you could kind of we could collaborate and work on that.
Okay. Yeah, please, that'd be good.
Yeah, so like it would be good to have ideas from other people as well, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
I didn't quite catch what you wanted to work on, but please.
It was the
mention
switching.
it in Slack.
The task switching?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
About
like-
that, okay. I will write down on a Google Doc like what my ideas are.
Yeah.
Related to switching, how we can take this forward. And like if anyone's interested, maybe we can put it in that sheet and work on it together.
Yeah, do that. Write up something, put it either in like open chat or even in general once it's ready. And that's typically what we do. Like we try to come up with an idea, flesh it out a bit, and then invite people to join the project. So that's great.
Yeah.
All right.
So I will I'll create like an open Google Doc. Anyone can read it, and then I'll put it on channel.
Yeah, that'd be good. I think getting multiple people's feedback on this is good because it's kind of a very broad topic. So I want to get people involved. If I know Morgan wants to do some things on behavioral switching, attentional switching, or whatever. That gives it an opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah, I'll have to. I don't know if I ever formalized it'd be nice to have like a little bit of a help doc, just like, hey, how do I submit a proposal to the lab group? Honestly, just so people kind of know what to do, because I know Ankit's new here. I don't think we've actually done that before. So much of the lab up to what we've done since the last few months have been stuff that we've had in the works for a very long time. So there's really been a lot of new generation of stuff. So we just haven't been in that mode. So, but people are welcome to write that up or blogs or whatever else. So yeah. Anyway, I just muted myself. Anyway, I have to kind of go myself.
Okay,
so good to talk to everybody.
All right, everyone. Thanks for attending. Follow up on the Slack. Have a good week.
Good.
Okay.
Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye.